Hi everybody and welcome back to Cozy Cards and Crystals. My name is Joanna and today it's time for another time travel video, this time through the month of May. So if you're new here, as always, there will be timestamps below for every section of this video, so you can skip ahead to those sections that you are interested in seeing. So now let's start with my card for the month. And my tarot card for the month was the Four of Swords, which is basically really on point again, because the Four of Swords is about taking a break, taking a breather, and especially when we look elementally on the elemental energy, it's about taking a break in terms of mental effort and pausing or calming down your mind. And that is what is really difficult for me and what I need to learn, because my mind is always running 100 miles per hour, and it's really difficult for me to calm it down. Even when I enjoy my leisure time and have already done everything I need to do for the day, and just chillaxing a little bit, it's always like, okay, what can I do next? Thinking about pretty much everything, and not really positively, but oftentimes really negatively. And so I really need to learn that. And also learning that I don't have to do something all of the time. It's totally okay to have maybe Sundays off and just do absolutely nothing, or just take a day to do whatever you want to do, what's fun doing, and not necessarily like effective or reasonable or productive, because that is a mindset that I have. It's like I always need to be productive, and that's really difficult. Now I'm in a position where I know that pattern of myself, I know where it comes from, and in this month I finally learned some tools or some things that I could do to shut that voice a little bit more down, or to go against it and to not let it take all the power away from me. And then the oracle deck that I used is the Faerie Enchantment by Ian Daniels. And I put this card at the beginning of the month, which is about bestow joyful freedom. And there again, that freedom from fear, that freedom from the need to always be productive, that freedom from expectations that I set on myself or that others set, and just being free to enjoy, joyful again, whatever the hell I want. And so that paired up really nicely. So enough rambling about my cards for the month. Let's start now looking at the decks I worked with. And the first deck I already mentioned, you already saw a card, is the Faerie Enchantments Oracle by Ian Daniels. This deck had a difficult time with me, and I had a difficult time with it. I have this for a few years now, and there's some things I really like about this deck. There's also really, for example, a really informative guidebook, which has a lot of well-researched information in there. And there's a whole system and a whole different approach to how you can use these cards, other than your typical oracle card pull, for example, because there are also 3 keywords here in the back. And so you can pull 3 cards actually and create a sentence by choosing the first one or the one on the top, here the middle one, and here the one on the bottom, and work with that. And it's based upon fairies. And it's your typical Ian Daniels imagery, which is which is depicting the fairies not as your beautiful, cute little romantic Victorian fairies, but as really powerful, huge, strong, wild energies, which I really love because that's the way I see fairy energy. More like a combination of the element of fire and earth energies combined as well. But for whatever reason, this oracle deck fell flat for me. And the first time I used it. And then there was a time where I didn't use it at all. And then I thought, okay, well, now I need to dive into it because this is a fairy deck that I really like. And I want to use some fairy energy or work with some fairy energy. And then I dove really into the guidebook and read through every entry of the card and what this Fae myth is all about. But then it didn't click either. And so it actually went into the to rehome pile. But every time it went into there, I couldn't do it. And this time at the beginning of the month, I finally had an inspirational thought of how I could use this deck, and that specific way of using it would or could reignite my passion for it and could get me excited using it. And it actually did. So the way I do it now is I pull an oracle or a card from this deck, pull one tarot card for each of these keywords, and I ask a question from based on each of these keywords and then pull a tarot card off of that question. And I really loved it that way. It really made me excited to use this deck, and I'm glad that I finally found its place in my collection and its use and its purpose and a way that works for me. And it also makes this deck really unique in the specific way that I use it and combine it with tarot. The tarot deck that I used it with was this one. This is the Secret Tarot. This is Dreamed. And this was also a deck that was on my to be rehomed list because I never felt drawn using it. Basically the same thing. It never clicked for me. I never felt or could build a good, solid connection with this deck or personal connection with this deck. And same as with the Faerie enchantments, I was never excited or inspired to use this deck. So I thought, well, maybe I use it with the Faerie enchantments because this also has a little bit of a darker, more serious color palette and look to it. And so it could work pretty well. And maybe then I have found a nice pairing and I have found the ways that these both fit in. For the fairy enchantments that worked, and now I love to use this deck and I'm excited. For the secret tarot, on the other hand, it wasn't a successful story. It still feels flat and boring, and I'm not excited, even though I love some of these cards really. And so I think I gave it a last chance, and even then, it didn't convince me. So I think it's now time to move this along. So I switched to another pair, and this was also one that all of a sudden, at one evening, I had the inspiration to combine these two together. And for the tarot deck, I really love the tarot deck that I will show you guys. So it wasn't a surprise that I love this deck and that I want to work with it. But for the other deck that I'm showing you right now, this was also one of these cases where it was in that liminal space of I don't necessarily want to rehome it, but I'm not feeling drawn to use it like a tarot deck. I'm not feeling drawn to use it at all. Now it finally found its place as well. And this is the Badass Baby Unicorns Tarot. And what I love about this deck is these little phrases that are here in every card. It is humorous, it has a lot of sass to it, a huge attitude, and it also uses some swearing words, for example, some dark humor as well, but that really speaks to my Sagittarius energy. Like my normal swearing words and the F word and all of that is in my daily repertoire of my daily vocabulary. It's something completely normal for me because that is the Sag in me. And so I really love this one as my Sagittarius energy deck, but I never felt drawn to use it like a tarot. And now I use this as an oracle, completely ignore the tarot association and just go with the phrase that is on the card. And then so I pull a card from this one first as an oracle message, look at the phrase, and then from that phrase I again build a question and then pull a tarot card to answer that question. And it works so well. I really love that process. And so I'm really glad that I wasn't too quick to give this one away, because as this oracle deck, it really, really works. And I love it. It gave me such nice messages, and it also really works well in terms of art style and color palette with the accompanying tarot deck that I will show you guys right now, which I know I loved and I love to use, but I never really found a perfect oracle deck match for it, and now I have. So let me get a tarot deck. And this is the tarot deck. This is the Britt's Third Eye Tarot. You've probably seen this on my channel a lot already, because it is one that I really, really love. But I never found an oracle deck that really matched it 100%, where I felt like, damn, this one, this is it. I really love its how the messages and the interpretations are pairing with each other, the energy of the decks fit each other, the art style and color palette fit, and with the Badass Baby Unicorns as an oracle deck, it really works well. Like, they accompany each other so well, they enrich each other in a way. And the messages are just so fitting. They really speak to each other. They look nicely together. And so I finally found the perfect match for this tarot deck, and I found the use for my Badass Baby Unicorns so that I could keep the Faerie Sag energy and can use both right now the way that I love to use my decks in a tarot and oracle deck pairing. So that was the decks that I used this month. So now let's start talking about the crystals of the month. So these are the 3 crystals that I worked with for this month. The first one that I felt drawn to right at the beginning of the month, and if you wonder how I choose the crystals that I want to work with, it's basically a pretty spontaneous, intuitive pick, which appears completely naturally and unexpected. Like, I see a crystal on Instagram or on TarotTube, or when I look at my collection, and I suddenly feel a really strong energetic pull towards it, or I feel super attracted to that mineral. And if that happens a few times when I scroll through Instagram, for example, and all of a sudden, like in terms of 1 week, all of the malachite pieces, for example, really catch my eye and I really love them. Even though I have seen thousands of malachites in the 20 years that I collect, then I know there is something this crystal wants to come up right now. And so malachite was the first one that this happens, or that thing happened to in the beginning of the month, and it is a really fitting one because malachite is associated with the heart chakra, and it's also really grounding and earthy energy at the same time. And it's basically like it is all about emotional transformation and everything that comes with that transformation process. So, reconnecting to your emotions, pulling emotions up or feelings up that you maybe have suppressed or tried to ignore, or that you didn't even know were there, so that you can work through it and see where it comes from and heal them, and also reconnect to your emotional self if you have any trouble with that, like I do. And so it can be a pretty painful process and a really challenging process, but it's also a necessary process, and malachite really helps you with that. And after all that stuff that came up, and that still is a work in progress in myself, I needed a little bit of a gentler energy, and so I felt really drawn to pink opal for some reason or another. I saw a pink opal image and I was totally encompassed with that energy and totally attracted by it. And so I was like, okay, so now the malachite time is over. I really need some pink opal, and get out my pink opal piece. And so pink opal is also a heart chakra crystal. So it's also about opening up your heart and about emotional stuff, but it has a lot more softer and gentler energy to it than malachite has. It's like, to me, this time it felt like a super emotional, nourishing hug in a way. And that was what I really needed, that soft hug, understanding, gentle, nourishing energy. And so this one was really cool to help me get through this difficult stuff and to feel understood and feel nourished and feel safe. And then in the end of the month, so these were basically the two crystals that I worked with throughout the complete month. But in the end of the month, there was another one that wanted to came up all of a sudden, Moonstone. And I was like, Moonstone is coming up, okay, for whatever reason. And first I was like, okay, Moonstone is also really feminine crystal, so it's also about being receptive, emotional, um, and open. And it's also a softer energy, like also getting you to understand that everything is cyclical, that there are some good and some bad days. The healing journey is also a cyclical journey. It's not a straightforward one where you all of a sudden are reaching the goal and that's it. And so I was like, okay, that is also really fitting in. But then I was like, I now know also where this comes from, because was it was time for my period to come up. And Moonstone is a really, really good crystal for everyone out there struggling with their periods. This one is the one to go to, because it's also a really good crystal for your hormonal cycle and to balance your hormones in a way. So if you struggle with in this special time, like you feel like everything is totally chaotic in your body and totally out of control, and it's super extreme in every single way, and your hormones are crazy, this one is the one for you to calm this all of this chaos a little bit down and to bring back some balance in there and also to calm you down as well and to tap into that process in a better way for you to be able to accept it a little bit more, even though it is hard, and see what your body is actually going through and appreciate it for that act, even though it is hard. So that was the moonstone coming up. So these were my crystals for the month. So now let's talk about all of the other shenanigans that I want to talk about, you guys. So first off, podcast-wise, there wasn't a new podcast that came up to me. I still listen to the podcast that I already mentioned in my last time travel videos. If you are interested in any of these podcasts or you want to listen to or hear me ramble about them and what they're about, go back to my other monthly reviews, time travel videos. You can always skip ahead to the podcast section and listen to what I have to say about these ones. Video games. So this month I played a lot more video games that I actually want to share with you guys because pretty much all of them except for one aren't video games that I really was like, oh, I love this game and I want to recommend it. So there's only one that I want to talk about, and it's Outcast: A New Beginning. This also isn't a video game that was perfect in my opinion. It still had a lot of things that I didn't really like, but I liked a few things enough that it actually was my highlight and that I felt comfortable talking and sharing it with you guys. So it's an open world action adventure, and if you are a person that really loves a super detailed and challenging fighting system, this game isn't for you because there are scenes and there are times where you need to fight, but are pretty much super simple. There are not a lot of weapons in there. There isn't a lot of variety in there. It's pretty much always the same thing. And there are some boss fights in there, but they're also not challenging at all. It's basically like just shoot at him and protect yourself so that you aren't hit, and then that's it. So they're also pretty quick. Also, in terms of quests and stories, like there are some super good. The core of the story is really, really good. And there's also some good side quest storylines that I really like. There's a lot of humor in there as well. But the way they really built the story and made it come alive in detail wasn't that good. So you might ask yourself, why then are you talking about this game? Because I really, really love the world that they created in this video game. The world is super gorgeously detailed done. So if you love a super nice, detailed, with love to details, and a nature world with super impressive and gorgeous plant life and super cute alien creatures and beings, then you like this game. But you just want to play to relax and explore a beautiful world and want some eye candy, then this one is probably for you. So the last thing I think that I need to talk about is TarotTube. So let's do that. Speaking of video games, I really enjoyed a video by Krista Chronicles, which was called Decks I Pair with Video Games. because I love when two passions of mine or two hobbies of mine come together, and when I see those two also with other people, or when I also see other people talking about it and have the same passions as I am, and see also new ways to maybe combine these two things that I love together and creates even more awesome thing by combining these two things. And so I really loved also seeing how Dawn Michelle also talked about video games in her tarot videos, and Krista making a whole video about specifically that topic was really cool. I could explore some gorgeous decks. I could also explore and find some new video games that I haven't seen before, which was really cool. And I could explore how you could combine these two things together and have a combined practice, which is really a fun thing. So that was just a fun and inspiring video to watch. Then we had the VR TaRomanceTropes by Tarot Magpie, which I really enjoyed. I also did a VR to it and I really found it a fun and interesting idea because I really love to pair my decks together, and I also personify my decks in a way. In terms of they all have different energies and ways of delivering their message to me. And so to see all of these different relationships and beginning of relationships that we as humans have, and see and transfer them to the relationships with our tarot decks was a really fun and interesting thing for me. And so I also did a VR. I will have a link to that in the video description down below if you haven't really watched it, as well as a link to all of the videos that I will mention here in the TarotTube section, so you can easily go and watch them yourself. So that was a really fun thing, and I also was glad that she did it because this is actually the video where I found her channel. And I really love her channel and her vibe and her ideas, so I'm really glad that I found her through this VR. And the last thing that I want to talk about, you guys, is a video by Fairlight Tarot, which was called Healing Decks. And this is a rambling one and a long one, which, if you know Fairlight Tarot, she really does these long videos, but I really love her videos even though they are long, because she comes up with so many different ideas and important things to talk about and to wrap your head around that are really worth thinking about and exploring and talking about, which I really like. And this one was one of those videos where it wasn't just about the decks that she showed, but she approaches and mentions so many different things about the healing process and what it is, and how tarot can accompany us through that process, and different important steps or challenges or struggles with the healing journey and all of that stuff. It was really interesting to listen to, and also a really important thing to talk about here on TarotTube. So if you are interested and you have the time to watch such a long video, go check it out. It was really informative and good and thought-provoking, which is always a really nice thing. So this was my time travel video through the month of May. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you found some things in here that were either inspiring or entertaining or helpful in any way. If you have any questions about the crystals, about the decks, about my practice, or about anything else that I talked about, feel free to leave a comment down below. I would be happy to answer your questions. And also, I would like to know what your favorites of the month were. If you enjoyed this video, please give this video a thumbs up. It really helps me to see what you guys are enjoying and what I can do more of. And if you haven't subscribed already, feel free to do so as well, so that you don't miss any of the other videos that are coming up on my channel. And Thank you guys for watching and taking some of your valuable time to share with me here on my channel. I really appreciate that. And until next time, you guys, bye.